Hello everyone, welcome to the 12 days of Christmas. Christmas has always been my absolute favorite time of year. Although it doesn't really get cold here that often, I still enjoy it because it's a time for family to get together. Let's get into what you'll need to follow along. Of course, you're going to need a pencil, eraser, watercolor paper, watercolor paint, a brush. For watercolor paper, I'm using 100% cotton cold pressed paper, and I am cutting them to postcard size. For paints, I'm using Holbein artist grade watercolor paints. Throughout each video, I will be labeling what paint I'm using at that time. For a paintbrush, I'm just using a small round. This is a number 4. Of course, you'll also need 2 cups of water, one for clean and one for dirty. Optional is paper tape and a clipboard. Additionally, I will be putting all the outlines on Patreon for download. So if you want to support me, you can go over to my Patreon and sign up as a member. Then you'll get all the outlines at the same time as the video comes out. All right, thank you so much. Let's get into painting. Hello everyone, welcome to day 12, the last day. Merry Christmas. We've saved the best for last. A cute little snowman. For the white of the snowman, we will be mixing a really watery wash of black and blue. We want to make it look kind of frosty and snowy. And then for the orange, we'll be using yellow ochre. For the other details, we'll just be using plain red or plain black. Let's start by activating our blue and black. So you just want to mix a tiny bit of blue and black together. This way it will make it a kind of cool gray. And then I'm just going to dab over the right side. That's the part that is in the light. So it starts to look like that white has texture, right? And then from there, we're going to make another slightly darker, more saturated black and blue. There we go. Use the dabbing motion, then it will look like there is texture to it. From there, let's just grab a watery red and paint those red streaks. Paint the scarf, and then there is a red stripe on his hat. All right, now let's just take black directly as it is. Try to make it a little bit watery. And then paint over the top of the hat, the rim of the hat. Then we have actually a very strong shadow on the ground. You can use just straight up black and blend it out. So you can see the slight variation of the blue and black and then the direct black. Maybe take a damp brush and kind of smooth out some of those edges. Okay, we're gonna wait for this to dry. That's the first layer. Then we'll go in and do the orange parts. Okay, it's completely dry to the touch. Let's go in and paint those mittens and his little nose. So we're going to take yellow ochre pretty much as is. Just do a watery wash over everything. There we go, that's all we need. Now let's go in and do the red of the hat. You can see there's a bright highlight here on the right because the light is coming from that side. A little bit darker. I'm just going to paint to about there, then I'm going to leave that out, and then I'm going to paint a bit there so it has that red highlight. So now let's go in with our watery blue-black mix and do another layer. So it's very, very transparent, and the way we're going to build up the shadow is in layers, because we still want to have that white, snowy feel. So we don't want this to get too dark. Now let's go in and do the scarf. So we'll start by, once again, painting a little bit darker on the left side, and then there's actually like 2 layers, so it kind of like wraps around twice. So we'll just paint that line in there, and then you can see there's a kind of texture on the scarf. So let's paint these lines in as if that's part of the texture. Then once it dries off, we'll do another layer that's slightly darker and add to that texture. Since it's a very small space, it's pretty much dry already, we're gonna grab yellow ochre, more saturated, and paint the shadows. We can see some bleeding happening here. It's a bit too much. With a damp brush, I'm just going to kind of swipe out a little. Let's paint another darker layer for the shadow on the ground. All right, and that's it for the second layer. We're going to let it dry off and then erase those pencil lines. We're going to go in with the last layer and try to make some things here and there darker. Everything is dry to the touch. I've also erased out our pencil lines. Now it's looking like a lot of things are missing, so we need to paint them back. Let's start with the mittens. So I'm going to take yellow ochre and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of black, just a tiny bit. So that just makes it a bit darker. And we're going to go in, it needs to be a bit more saturated. Let's try again. Let's pick up that paint there. We're going to go in, paint it a bit more saturated. As you can see, go. And then it has like a texture on it, which might be a little bit hard to paint because it's so small, but let's just try to get that in. All right, on the other side. Okay, and for the red, we are going to mix yellow ochre into the red. That warms it up a bit. And then we're going to do the same, where I want to show that there's a bit of texture and that pattern. There we go. With our hat, we need to go in and paint the dark black. So let's grab black. Leave that highlight out there. Same as here, as a highlight on the hat. So I'm gonna leave that like that. Okay, let's paint his little buttons. But for the eyes, you know, because they are so small, I'm going to take a black pen and just draw out those eyes. Okay, let's grab our brush again And with black, I'm just going to swipe one layer down here to show the difference. And we need to have kind of a slightly darker line that's showing the difference between some of these. So we're doing a light, watery black and blue. All right, I think that's all we need. So for our final background, we're going to paint blue, and that's going to help us to really see the difference between the snowman, which is supposed to be white, and the background, which is kind of white at this point and difficult to really think of it as white when the background is white as well. Putting down water over everything, we want to get that edge back, and then dropping in our Prussian blue. Let's not go too dark because we want it to feel very light, kind of snowy. Okay, also the surface of the ground. Let's just make it black. And there we go. Our final painting done. Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. I will see you in 2026.